So let's look at eclipses for a minute. The most accepted government agencies that deal with space, quote unquote space, and luminary bodies, as the scriptures would call them, they made a huge deal about August 21st, 2017. But with a little bit of investigation, you start to see that the day of the eclipse was also the day of the new moon. Specifically, where the lunar phase of the moon, where the disk of the moon was not illuminated. Now, Scripture tells us what the moon is and how it gets its light as it's transferred from the sun. It's not reflecting the sunlight. It's energy transferred from the sun and self-illuminating after it receives that energy over a period of 14 to 15 days. But then when it's full, it releases that energy as it waxes and loses it till the disk of the moon is no longer illuminated. Did you guys realize that this always happens? The eclipses always happen when there's no light in the moon. Here's a solar eclipse schedule, May 20th for 2012. Here's the lunar phase of the moon from May of 2012. It was a new moon also. And you can keep searching that if you like. You can keep looking, go through all the lunar eclipses in history. It's always on the new moon phase where there's no light in the moon. It's pretty interesting, right? I would even say it's suspect. Let's look at what the scriptures say. Yeah, West Blaze, I hear you. There's a lot of testimony about people during the Great American Eclipse of 2017 not seeing the moon anywhere before or after, days before or days after, right? Because usually the period in the 29-day schedule of the moon was just a 3-day period where there's no light in the disk of the moon. And so there's amateur astronomers with extremely high-powered telescope and photo lenses that were looking and trying to find the new moon leading up to the eclipse and couldn't find it because there's no light in it. And we're going to go over that here as Enoch tells us about the sun and the moon. First Enoch 72, 1-2. The book of the courses of the luminaries of the heaven, the relations of each, according to their classes, their dominion, their seasons, according to their names and the places of origin, according to their months, which Uriel, the holy angel, who was with me, who is their guide, he showed me. And he showed me all their laws, exactly as they are, and how it is with regard to all the years of the world and unto eternity, till the new creation is accomplished, which endures till eternity. And this is the first law of the luminaries. The luminary of the sun has its rising in the eastern portals of the heaven, and its setting in the western portals of the heaven. And I saw 6 portals in which the sun rises. The 6th portal in which the sun rises, and the moon rises and sets in these portals. And the leaders of the stars and of those whom they lead, 6 in the east and 6 in the west, all following each other in accurately corresponding order. Also, many windows to the right and left of these portals. Guys, the reason why it's saying windows is because the word heaven means firmament. It's a solid structure and expanse. There's actually 7 described in scriptures, and the sun and moon are stuck between 2 layers of firmament, and they have their own course, a circuit, as we're about to read right here, which is a circumference in the same circumference of the actual firmament, the heaven. This is why it keeps mentioning this concept of portal. That portal just means a doorway, an opening inside of a structure. This isn't mystical. This isn't like the movies where, a magician waves his hand and he opens a portal into another dimension. It's not that type of portal. It's an old word translated that means a doorway, a passageway from one physical structure into another open area. So as we keep reading verse 4, it says, and at first there goes forth the great luminary named the sun. His circumference is like the circumference of the heaven, and he is quite filled with illuminating and heating fire. And this is the law in the course of the sun, and his return as often as he returns 60 times and rises, the great luminary which is named the sun, forever and ever. And that which rises is the great luminary, and is so named according to its appearance, according as the Lord commanded. As he rises, so he sets, and decreases not, and rests not, but runs day and night, and his light is 7-fold brighter than that of the moon. But as regards to size, They are both equal. So a couple things here. Even though it's using this word rises, again, that's an ancient word that's translated. We also see this in Psalm 19, 4 through 6. That Hebrew word rises that's translated, it doesn't mean going up and down. And that it means going forth and getting bigger. It rises over you as it goes forth in the sky in its circumference of the heaven above. Because it's just a light. So that's why it says it'll rise and it'll set, and it never rests and never stops. And the moon is the same size. So right here we have a description of the moon and sun to their size and their motions and their placement. Three major concepts that are absolutely and utterly contradictory to what the world has told us the creation looks like. So as we go through this information, I hope to remember to remind everyone watching, we're using biblical cosmology. We're not going to be using the idea of an occultic, pagan, heliocentric evolutionary cosmology that denies the creator and describes the existence completely opposite to what the creator describes. We're going to be using the creator's descriptions for all these terms and ideas. That's the only way that this information is going to make sense. Let's look at something real quick. We're going to look at let me see here real quick, a short little clip of a amateur astronomer who has all the professional gear. And the only reason they call astronomers amateur is because they're not hired by some sort of, prestigious foundation or university or something like that. But this guy's got, I think, 20 plus years of experience of using his high-powered telescope. So we're going to take a look at some of his observations.
What you're going to see here is my footage. Hydrogen alpha scope with a double stack, a solar max. That is the sun you see with your eyes. Okay, I'm going to pan around here. And that's lens flare, legitimate lens flare that you're seeing there. There's the sun you see with your eyes. And in a second here, I need to go the other way. There's lens flare. There we go. Watch the top. You'll see a little thing go by. This is the first time in the spring of 2016 that I discovered the double sun. There's the sun we see with our eyes. I'm still scanning around. I'm going to scan back over and find the other object for the first time. There it is, top of frame. This is the sun we do not see with our eyes. Now, I was afraid to post this for a long time. You're going to see that it will blur out. I'll mess with focus. I put a huge wrapping paper tube over the end of the Solar Max scope. When you see the disturbance over the face of this, that's what's going on. I'm trying to prove that this isn't lens flare, but all those there, right there. I also take my hand and I do light blocking over the end of the scope, which ironically, the gentleman who I'm about to introduce to you, who you should all go sub, saw this footage way back in 2016, and he replicated what I did, which I'm going to show you here in a minute, which is proof positive.
Now, real quick, just to let everyone know, this is Crow 777, and it's actually, I'll put it, this is what it's, how you spell it. Someone put it in the chat as well. It's how you spell it, 2 R's, 3 7s. Crow 777. He's had multiple problems with YouTube taking down his channel or banning his channel, and all he does is look up at the sun, moon, and stars and records things. So this is what he's coming to the conclusion of a double sun, but I know there's already people in the crowd asking, oh, wait, are there 2 suns? Scriptures never describe 2 suns. This is one of 2 things that would make perfect sense with the multi-layered firmament described in Scripture. It's either the origin of the sun, the actual light source origin, which that then, imagine a flashlight shining it on a glass door. You would see 2 lights. You would see through the glass door to see the actual light coming, illuminating the interior of the flashlight, but then you would see the place where the light is strongest and hitting the actual glass, creating what looks like another point of light that then bounces into the entire room, being magnified into the open space beyond the glass. So if the sun is shining down through the firmament into our open space that we live in called the earth, and underneath our level of firmament, then this makes perfect sense. Or it could just actually be part of the reflection of the sun going through the firmament. Either way, there's not two suns up there. And this is actually some of these conclusions is where people start to think, and we're going to talk about another bright object in the sky here in a minute. But some of these people will come to these conclusions because they don't think of biblical cosmology. They're not factoring that in. They're thinking of heliocentric balls and space cosmology. So then they think, oh my goodness, if he's seen two objects producing lights, one brighter than the other, then what is he seeing? It must be two suns. Oh my goodness, right? So you have all these Nibiru Planet X speculations that come up as a result of this. It's way, way unnecessary. If you understand the actual biblical cosmology, you realize how light works. You can replicate this at the house with a flashlight and a glass screen door or a glass bowl. It's very simple. This is exactly what's described in Scripture, is what would happen from what's described in Scripture. With that said, let's look some more, because this is not just a light. This is not some sort of sunspot on his lens. This isn't reflection or refraction. This isn't some sort of flare from overexposure of light. This is actually, he can see this, that there's a secondary or maybe even a primary source of light next to the main body of the sun.
Another individual doing it. Scanning back, there's a little bit of lens flare. There's the real sun that we see with our eyes in the bottom of frame coming back into frame. Now I'm going to load another clip that I shot. I think I did this 3 or 4 days in a row, coming back to try to confirm this. Now here's a new clip. There's the sun you see with your eyes. That is legitimate lens flare right there. Scan out. There's the sun we don't see with our eyes on a new day. I'm confirming it once again. In a minute here, I'm going to load footage from a gentleman called Chris Van Meter, who took out equipment and replicated exactly what I did here, which is proof in the pudding. But he did something more. In one of the clips, you're going to see a telephone line going in front of the sun we do not see, which is also proof in itself. Again, there's the sun we see. Here comes Chris's footage. There's the name of his channel. You should all go up and sub him. There's the sun we see with our eyes. And there's the sun we do not. That noise is because this is a rip of a rip. We'll have better footage of this as we move along. But there is this. He is confirming in the same spot, in the same year, in spring, what I did. Here comes another clip by Chris on a new day. There is the sun we do not see with our eyes with a telephone wire in his field of view. When he scans back over to the regular sun, it's not there. There's the sun we see with our eyes. And again, we're back to my footage here. There's the sun we see. There's the sun we do not see without a Hydra alpha scope with a double stack or a full spectrum camera. I will say,
the reason why he keeps saying this is the sun we see and the one we do not see, because he can only see this with this particular hydrogen alpha solar filter that he's got on here, right? Which means it's blocking out certain types of sunlight and only allowing other types in. And it's always connected to the sun, specifically at a certain time of year that they're capturing this. This is why I just provided my understanding of what would cause this phenomenon according to biblical cosmology and how the Creator described the sun and where it's placed in the firmament above. In a minute, we're going to look and see the same astronomer caught another bright body in the sky that doesn't move with the sun, doesn't move with the stars. It moves strangely. So stay tuned.
That it is my contention this second object can be detected in visual spectrum with just normal tools at sunrise and sunset. Here comes the sun we see. So as we warm up here, I'm going to be pairing off with some people to do more work on the sun here. But there it is, man. There is another object there. Might well be the source of the sun that we see. And since I have stated the moon is plasma, it could also be the cause for that. There it is, man. Crow Discovery Project. Cheers.
Okay. So yeah, he's an interesting guy, and I've actually he actually does a podcast with our friend Jason Lindgren from Secrets of Saturn, and I've interviewed Jason Lindgren on here before, as you guys remember, and he's interviewed me on his channel. So yeah, you guys go check them out. Let's continue in 1 Enoch 73, 1 through 2. And after this law, I saw another law dealing with the smaller luminary, which is named the moon. And her circumference is like the circumference of the heaven, and her chariot in which she rides is driven by the wind. and light is given to her in definite measure. So now this is Enoch being shown by Uriel how the energy from the sun is transferred to the moon and how the moon's light grows and decreases throughout the month. First Enoch 77, 1 through 3. And the name of the sun, the names, it's got two names of the suns are the following. The first name of the sun is Orgers. I can't even say it. Orgers. And the second name of the sun is Tomas. And the moon has four names. The first name is Asanya. The second is Ebla. The third is Benez. And the fourth is Ire. These are the two great luminaries. Their circumference is like the circumference of the heaven, and the size of the circumference of both is alike. So this is another time when it's telling you these luminaries, they're the same size, and their circular circumference shape is like the heaven, the firmament. People ask us all the time, Sean, how do you know that the firmament, even if it is a real structure like the scriptures say, how do you know the shape of it is dome-like? I'm like, well, it tells us multiple places in scripture, and here's one of them. So in 1 Enoch 72:37 and 1 Enoch 77:3, the two luminaries are called the same size. So guys, this should utterly cause you to take a mental stop and think about what you've been taught all your life about heliocentric cosmology of a huge sun, and we're supposedly 93 million miles away, revolving around that, and then our moon is a quarter of the size of the sun, of the planet that we live on, and that's revolving around us at a different speed. And just because it just so happens to be that the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon, and so therefore when they do, according to them, when the eclipse happens and the moon eclipses the sun, it looks like they're the same size. Because I'm trying to tell you, and we're going to be going into greater depth of this, that it's not the moon eclipsing the sun. 1 Enoch 77, 4 through 5. In the circumference of the sun, there are 7 portions of light which are added to it more than the moon. And in definite measures, it is transferred to the 7th portion of the sun and is exhausted. And they set and enter the portals of the west and make their revolution by the north, and coming forth through the eastern portals on the face of the heaven. And when the moon rises, 1/14 part appears in the heaven, the light becomes full in her. On the 14th day, she accomplishes her light. And 15 parts of light are transferred to her till the 15th day when her light is accomplished. That's when she's full and bright. According to the sign of the year, and she becomes 15 parts. And the moon grows by the addition of 14 parts. And in her waning, the moon decreases on the first day to 14 parts of her light, and on the second day to 13 parts of her light, on the third to 12, on the fourth to 11, on the fifth to 10, on the sixth to 9, on the seventh to 8, on the eighth to 7, on the ninth to 6, on the 10th to 5, on the 11th to 4, on the 12th day down to 3 parts of her light, on the 13th day down to 2 parts of her light, on the 14th day down to half of the 7th. And all her remaining light disappears wholly on the 15th. And in certain months, the month has 29 days and once 28. And in her waning, the moon decreases to the first day. Oh, I'm sorry, I messed up. And Uriel showed me another law when light is transferred to the moon, and on which side it is transferred to her by the sun. During all the period during which the moon is growing in her light, she is transferring it to herself when opposite to the sun. During 14 days, her light is accomplished in the heaven, and when she's illumined throughout, her light is accomplished full in the heaven. And on the first day, she is called the new moon, for on that day, the light rises upon her. Okay, did you guys get that? So technically the idea of a new moon, even though the world calls the new moon the time when it's completely dark, the scriptures say that technically the term new moon is applied when the light first starts coming back on the moon, after it was dark for about 3 days. So we don't want to squabble too much on that use of that phrase new moon, but it's a slight difference. But the point is, when the moon has lost all of its light and the disk of the moon is without light at all, that's every single time they claim that is when the eclipses happen during that phase of the moon. And therefore it's nearly impossible. Apparently it is impossible, according to astronomers and people that actually have high-powered telescopes. They cannot see the moon getting close to the sun when they're watching an eclipse. So what's going on? First Enoch 77:13-14 says, she becomes full, this is the moon, exactly on the day when she sets in the west. And from the east she rises at night, and the moon shines the whole night through until the sun rises over against her, and the moon is seen over against the sun. That would mean they're on opposite parts of the sky from our observation. On the south, where the light of the moon comes forth, there again she wanes till all the night light vanishes, and all the days of the month are at an end, and her circumference is empty, void of light. You guys seeing that? So when the circumference of the body of the moon, the luminary of the moon, when her light is gone, it says she's empty. She's void of light. Okay. Then it goes on to say, First Enoch 77:15-17, in 3 months she makes of 30 days, and at the time she makes 3 months of 29 days each, in which she accomplishes her waning in the first period of time, in the first portal for 177 days. And in the time of her going out, she appears for 3 months of 30 days each, and for 3 months she appears of 29 each. And here's the interesting part, guys. At night, she appears like a man for 20 days each time. We all look up and see a face in the moon, right? Looking like a man's face. Generically and culturally, it's called the man on the moon. Okay, Enoch knew that way back then. And by day, she appears like the heaven. By day, she appears like the heaven. Meaning, she has the, you guys ever see the moon in the day? She takes on the bluish aspect of the sky. She appears like the heaven. For there is nothing else in her. This is at the time when she appears 20 days. But just trying to explain to you that there's nothing else in her except her light. That's why she can appear like the blue during the day, dark at night, but then when she's lit up, that part's brilliant white with light. It's a different type of light, a different shading than we see in the sunlight during the day. So therefore, if she's gotten to her lunar phase where there's no light in her, then there's nothing else in her. That's why you can't see her in the sky. It's still a physical object of some sort. Crow 777 may be right. It may actually be made of plasma. That would make a lot of sense because I've done whole videos on plasma and how it's literally one of the principal building blocks of all creation, and it's electromagnetically charged. So electromagnetically charged. So it would make a lot of sense that that's how it's receiving the energy from the sun to start powering up over 14, 15 days and then start slowly losing it. So then when there's nothing else in there, it's literally just like see-through, but there's still matter there. It's just not congealed, tightly enough so that it can still be visible. So essentially, the body, the substance of the moon is see-through when there's no light through her. There's nothing else in her except light. But there's still something there. I'm going to give credit to that. And we're going to watch a little something on that here in a minute. But let's look at another quick clip. Of Crow.
So there is logical.
So this is going to be something that he's actually filming an eclipse, and he sees something pretty unique.
Common sense data that demonstrates the distance of the moon doesn't match what we can demonstrate. Here we have a picture of the eclipse. Now look on the right side. You can see the sun showing through the darkened lunar disk. Now the blue light.
Now guys, he claims and he believes that it is the moon eclipsing the sun. I'm putting forward a different theory tonight. It's another dark body, but it's not the moon. And here's why. This picture that you're looking at is why. When he captured this moment of the eclipse, of this dark image going in front of the sun, you see that only the outer portion of this circumference of this image is see-through. You can see it on screen. It's right here I hope you can see it. Only the outer edge is see-through. But the interior of it, also circumference-like, is not see-through. It's solid. No, to Helium 119, we didn't walk on the moon. Not even close. So this would make a lot of sense, right? You would think, oh, well, okay, yeah. If Enoch says that there's nothing in the moon except for her light, then maybe this is this is the moon going in front of the sun. Because look, you can see through the outer edge, but why can't you see through the entire body of it? Why is it so dark it's blocking the light of the sun? If there's nothing in it except light to illuminate it, this other than that, it's just see-through. And why would only the outer edge be see-through and not the 95% of the bulk of its body? Yes, Jason Kinney, that's an actual picture with a high telephoto lens with what I believe he has multiple solar filters in order for him to capture the sun as an eclipse is happening. This is an astronomer.
That comes up shows the lunar disk, or what we are told is the moon covering the sun. The red line that comes up shows the solar disk. So look at that right area. This has been predicted and demonstrated many times and suppressed. What you are seeing on the right side is the limb of the sun showing through the limb of the moon, or at least that's what we are told we are looking at when we're seeing a solar eclipse like this. There are many examples from old Royal Astronomical Societies and other astronomers who have witnessed near an eclipse things showing through the lunar disk or near the new moon. So again, we see these first-hand evidential things that allow us to call into question what we've been told. Now, I have filmed every lunar and solar eclipse in recent years. This is a partial solar eclipse that I shot with both my telescope and a telephoto lens. The reason I'm showing this is because you've got to consider that we are told the moon is roughly 400 times smaller than the sun, yet the sun is 400 times more distant, so we see this perfect kind of fit when they are aligned. And when you consider if it's even possible statistically, and I have seen people do the statistics on this that kind of demonstrate that it is damn near impossible for random events to have caused this kind of alignment. You know, we need to question these things. I'm
going to back this up a little bit. He's filming an eclipse with a different type of filter that way. That's why the sun looks so diminished in light. And you can actually see the dark spots on the sun. We're actually going to talk about that in part 20 as well. But this is, you see, as the eclipse starts happening, because this is just a partial that he's filming. I just think it's fascinating that it seems like as soon as the eclipse starts coming in, it's like it changes trajectory and starts going back out, which I think is amazing. If he literally was filming it from his point of view on the land where he lives and filming this eclipse in the sky at just the right angle to catch it on its circumference revolution in this firmament, to where if it's the moon, I'm going to back it up, guys, and so you can watch this again. I'm gonna take the sound out so you can just see the motion and the path of the moon. It's coming down at a diagonal, like 2 o'clock, and then it's going to stop and go back up towards 12 o'clock. Do you see that? Yeah, I would love to talk to Crow 777 sometime, because in this clip, he doesn't even mention the trajectory of the moon changing. It changed. It came down, it stopped, and it went up. It's not the moon, guys. We're going to keep going.
You kind of get an intuition and an observational experience that goes on. And while I probably only have maybe a couple hundred hours at this point, maybe more, I'm not sure, I have come to a point where just accepting that this is a nuclear furnace, in my mind, needs to be questioned. I think it's no different than the moon. Everything we have been told about space, been told about the sun, been told about our planet and our moon need to be questioned.